Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Ott.X Buzz, where we bring together leading industry experts analysis to digest and discuss the latest trends and topics in OTT, CTV, and the streaming space. My name is Jose Rodriguez, and we are delighted to have you join us here today. Before we get started, a friendly reminder that all Ott.X Buzz sessions are available on demand at ottx.org and via podcast on Spotify. We hope that you subscribe and listen along on the go. We are very excited for today's Buzz session, which will be moderated by Stephanie Prange, Editor-in-Chief and Associate Publisher for MediaPlay News, and feature panelist Craig Heiting, Head of Corporate Strategy for Wurl, Alisa Joseph, Independent Consultant for Screen Media Alchemy, Bryan Louzil, Vice President Business Development for Mometu, and Vikrant Mathur, co-founder of Future Today, and Vince Muscarella, Vice President of Sales for Whip Media. Stephanie and esteemed panel, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jose.
Of course. Have a good one, guys.
Again, I'm Stephanie Prange. I'm Editor-in-Chief and Associate Publisher at MediaPlay News. It's the trade for home entertainment. And I just wanted to start, we're going to have a nice discussion today. It's going to be a pretty wide-ranging discussion, just touching on some stories. I wanted, first of all, to have the panelists just kind of introduce themselves and kind of tell us what their involvement in the business is. So, Vikram, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here, first and foremost. My name is Vikrant Mathur. I'm the co-founder of Future Today. Future Today is arguably one of the largest publishers of streaming apps and channels across the footprint and plethora of devices that you can consume streaming content through. We have an app called Happy Kids, which is one of our flagship apps for kids and families. It has everything from Peppa Pig and PJ Masks to, movies and TV shows for parents and families to enjoy together. And we have an app called Fawsome, which is one of our flagship apps in the movies and entertainment category, where we have a library of over 40,000 movies and TV shows for folks to enjoy for free on an ad-supported basis. In addition, we have a B2B offering where we work with a number of third parties, content creators, media houses, and studios, and leverage the technology that we had originally built for ourselves to essentially help them launch and manage their OTT offerings. So work with companies such as Lego, Moonbug, Pocket Watch, FilmRise, and a number of others. And across the ecosystem, we have about 350 apps and channels that we manage across all these platforms and devices. So that's who we are.
How about you, Craig?
Oh, hi. I'm Craig Heiting, and I'm the head of corporate strategy for Wurl, which is a subsidiary of AppLovin. And we're the leader in distribution and monetization for content on CTV. So we take care of all of the major folks that are distributing their content on FAST and other methods.
And Bryan?
Hello, everyone. Bryan Louzil. I'm the VP of Business Development for Mometu, and Mometu meaning more for me and you. We actually focus on the underserved content. So we're an AVOD platform that's available within North America, and we focus on serving the underserved. So working with a lot of the independent filmmakers, international films that haven't quite made it to the States or to North America, and also some classic titles to kind of showcase where cinema has come and up until today. I'm also the founder of the Mometu College Shorts Film Festival, which is a festival we started to help support the up-and-coming filmmaker. So this past year we had 69 films represented from 38 different colleges and universities to showcase the future filmmaker. And it was a great time. But really excited to join the panel today and just kind of just be part of the buzz.
All right, Alisa, how about you?
Yes, hi. Thanks, Stephanie. Alisa Joseph, I am the founder and independent consultant for Screen Media Alchemy. My background is very heavy in the industry, but I came up from the world of advertising and research and data, and then spent the last 9 years in the world of content, supply chain technology, distribution, film licensing, and have taken all of that and turned it into a consulting service where I'm working with companies across media and entertainment in technology, data, offering services in the area of strategic guidance, business development, commercial go-to-market, and very excited to be here. I think it's a great moment to have some conversations with the others on the esteemed panel and talk about the pain points and potential opportunities to help the industry at this moment in time.
And last but not least, Vince.
Thanks, Stephanie. Vince, VP of Sales with Whip. I've been with the company for 4+ years. Whip Media has unique audience engagement data, which is used by companies to help fill a lot of gaps in the streaming space and understand demand and affinity across platforms. Also, we have a SaaS solution, or a number of SaaS solutions that we've been providing to studios and networks for many years, and has grown to include platforms and most recently FAST companies. We're very active in the FAST space. We're working on a FAST transparency initiative that was recently announced. So we're very, in terms of audience data and your own data and management of your data and supply chain and licensing and things like that, we're very active.
Great. So our agenda today is we're going to take a look at a few recent news stories, just to get a feel for what's going on out there. And there are stories that are an interest in streaming and entertainment. And we've got about 10 minutes per story. And then to wrap things up, we're going to do a lightning round where I'll ask each of our panelists about one particular news story that somehow resonated with them over the past, say, month, or maybe even longer. We want to keep things casual, but not shy away from controversy, so feel free to share your thoughts. Now, the first story we're going to go look at is about pickleball. When I first saw this story, I was like, wow, something is really interesting about this. And I even elevated it on our blast. QVC is going to stream pickleball. And they're getting to live sports streaming. Now, I thought that was very interesting. I know pickleball is pretty popular, especially as we get older and it's easier on the knees. It's supposedly a very popular rising sport, but I thought it was kind of interesting that they picked, kind of an obscure sport. I just wanted the panelists to kind of weigh in on what they thought about this move by QVC, and also just the whole live sports arena and how it might be changing.
Well, I can comment really quickly, because the thing that caught my eye most was that this is a sport targeted at the 45+ group of people, and QVC has made a pretty strong stand that that's their target audience. So I think they're jumping into an area that many are thinking about, which is this intersection of commerce and entertainment. And live sports is difficult, so there's some challenges there. But I think it's really a move to say, we need to secure that audience. We need to engage. We need to find new ways to bring new people into the picture. So from a what they chose perspective made sense. But then sort of looking at that general space of sports and where people are thinking about the next move might be. It looks like racket sports in general is an area that seems to be moving towards live streaming. It was funny, I was talking to my younger son, who's involved in padel, which is the Latin American version, somewhere between pickleball, racquetball, and tennis. But it's the hottest sport in Europe and the Middle East. And some say it's the next pickleball from a live streaming perspective. So I think it's, there's a combination of things going on here, a confluence of things, which is live sports, streaming, everyone's getting into the game. They're looking at what's not already streamed. And then the piece around, I think, commerce and entertainment coming together, and everyone looking at, is this the way in?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Alisa completely that this is a great move for QVC HSN. It's really, it hits their demographics. It's a rising sport, and the big news here is that they're marrying it with e-commerce, and it'll really be telling to see if they can actually sell some pickleball rackets and clothes and balls as a result of this. And by the way, as far as doing live, I think QVC HSN should be able to do live no problem, because they've been doing live 24/7 for what, 50 years now or something? I don't know, but it's a great move for them.
Yeah, this is probably like my favorite story, like out of the ones that we're going to be, covering, because it was the most interesting, right? Because the first your first reaction is like, what? And then your second reaction is after you read it, you're like, actually, that makes a ton of sense. I was actually surprised. It's bold in the sense that like they're doing something different. It's but something that I think we had this concept like within our audience data of a platform match or platform mismatch that we've seen over time. Like when you see a title like that went to started on Lifetime and had these great underlying engagement factors, but just didn't have the viewership because it was younger women that were engaging with them. But younger women are not on Lifetime. And then it blew up on it once it went to Netflix, where that demo can be reached. They're targeting the right demo, and they're doing it in a new and interesting and different way. And there's a product tie-in. I don't have the stats, but I would bet I bet money that there's an overlap between people who play pickleball and disposable income that they can target. So I think it's a fun story, but I think it makes sense because it makes you think a little bit, and you can really see the logic there.
I'd also have to say it's a win for the brands. Brands have a very unique challenge to reach their target audiences. Different methods of advertising, marketing, just to get people to use their product or their service. And this not only bridges that gap where brands don't actually have to use the advertising and marketing. They're using QVC as that direct piece there for a very large market of pickleball, players and watchers and users. But they're also going to be bringing in a new audience to QVC, because there's probably pickleball people, right? Just pickleball communities that are out there that are not involved using QVC's app. And so now they're going to be bringing in a whole new demographic into their mix. And on top of that, it's actually not that big of a risk for QVC, because it's, if I read the article right, it's only for the championships. So it's not like they're purchasing the rights their whole entire season, which would be a lot more lucrative or sorry, expensive for them, but it's going to be something where it's just a limited amount of time, so they can really see if this works or not, and if it's worth actually spending more in the future.
That's a good point, because it was part of the article and the deeper research that I was looking at was this idea of these are cheaper rights generally, these smaller sports, these niche sports. But that's a good point, is that, how much are people willing to wade into the water when they initially try it out? Is it, because you said championships only, that's a limited amount of money invested. But it'll be interesting to see, what level of risk people are taking and what they're willing to spend on trying something out for the first time.
Yeah, I had the same reaction as Vince. The first time I read it, I was like, what? Like, this makes no sense. But I think to me, it sort of underscores 2 points. One is, how sort of wide open the playing field is when it comes to the world of streaming, right? And sort of the wild, wild world that we live in, where anybody can try everything. Gone are the days when the industry was sort of monopolized by, a couple of cable operators and a couple of networks. And in order to get distribution, you had to do very, very expensive deals with the both of them. Now you could come up with any bizarre idea that you may have, right? At least at the surface. And you really execute and see as to how it pans out. And if it works, then that's great. If it doesn't, then it was an experiment that you tried at a relatively speaking low cost. And if it failed, it failed, right? But you move on. So I think that's sort of one, just speaking to the state of our industry, right? And all the exciting opportunities that it brings to content creators and programmers, and the distribution opportunities that are available at our disposal, where you could try new things and experiment. So that's That's one. I think the second piece that I'm more curious about is, we've been talking about content-enabled commerce for a long time. The conversation didn't start with streaming. The conversation started with online video back in the day, where folks were trying to figure out how to drive commerce through content that was, created perhaps on demand for those viewers. And obviously, QVC HSN has been pioneering this space for a long, long time in the TV category. So what I'm most curious about is, given that they now have an IP-enabled backbone where you can add in a lot of interactivity and different types of features that they could not do on a traditional television cable network, are they going to be the pioneer in the sort of content-enabled commerce space in the streaming ecosystem as well, right? Because if somebody understands how to get people into that funnel, it is QVC HSN, especially on the big format, on the sort of 55, 60-inch lean back experience. And so I know there's a lot of companies that have been talking about it. They've been experimenting with it. There's new startups that are sort of playing into that space now. But fundamentally, I feel like TV is still a very passive consumption sort of device, form factor. And oftentimes when I'm watching TV, I don't even know where my remote is, right? And so if it's as simple as just calling a 1-800 number and placing an order, which is what they've been doing on TV for the longest time, then that's great, right? And maybe that's the model that they continue with. But I'm very curious to see as to what that actual product looks like and what the interactivity elements and experience is, and if it really moves the needle when it comes to content-enabled commerce.
You talk about
thanks
experimentation, right? Just really quickly, as you talk about experimentation, and Bryan, you too, it's not like they are licensing, all rights and, for an extended period of time. It really is just sort of selective. It's a championship. It's a relatively inexpensive way for them to try something different, but that on paper makes a lot of logical sense. So I'm curious as well, because you could see them, if this works, they could expand within pickleball, but they could also replicate that with, potentially other things that none of us have ever considered doing, but that again, on paper would make sense.
Yeah, well, moving on from pickleball, I wanted to talk about kind of there was another story that said to me, oh, this is definitely a trend. Our second story is titled Charter Spectrum Cuts Carriage Deal with NBCUniversal, Adding Peacock to Pay TV Packages. It's a Hollywood Reporter story. And in the story, it says this Charter Spectrum customers with this new deal have access to $65 worth of streaming services included with their subscription. Now, I don't know about you all, but most of my streaming services, it seems like we got through a deal with Verizon, or I don't even know how we got it for free. And I'm kind of paralyzed and like, I don't want to cancel anything because it might kill Disney Plus or kill, Netflix. This is another trend that's been happening in addition to live sports streaming, and indeed advertising interactivity is this bundling of kind of pay TV with streaming. And what do you think about these deals?
If I could start. So I actually came from the cable TV world. I was with Time Warner Cable for many years, and I used to do retransmission consent must carry deals with the networks. And I suspect that this is another part of that this is related to that, take Peacock and we'll give you access to all of our NBC affiliated stations and networks throughout the country. But it was a good move, right? It was the right move for Charter. Charter, has been very innovative in leading the way in jumping in the streaming bandwagon. And they really need to do that because that's where people are going. And if they want to stay relevant, they know that they have to include streaming services and give people a place to go to get those services that they've been flocking to, and have them all in one place. So I applaud them for being innovative. I think it's a win-win for everybody. Peacock certainly has their challenges, so this gives them a nice audience and a nice leg up. It's great programming, and I think you see the charter stocks starting to rebound. I think it's because they're being innovative and they're reimagining their service, and it's going to go a long way.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the big thing is that pay TV in general is still, going down. I mean, numbers are going down, and it's a lifeline, I do believe, to make this a more formalized process, and Charter's ahead of the game and in formalizing. I agree with you, Craig, though. I think it's a larger play that has a lot of other tentacles. But I think to compete with streaming, there's just no way out. This is it. If they're going to stay in the game, this is how it's going to go. It just sort of feels like, what is old is new again, which people keep repeating. And I remember sitting in rooms 3 years ago and people were like, is streaming the new cable? Is FAST the new cable?
Yeah.
And here we are. And the next, it really is the moment in time when I think all of these companies are having a realization. Survival is going to be dependent on being innovative and partnering with the enemy, frankly.
Yeah, those services were called, OTT services for a reason, because for a long time, if you wanted content in the home, you had to go through broadcast and then broadcast and cable, and then okay, you had home video as an option, and but now it's over the top, and so you've got these virtual MVPDs and streaming services, and no shortage of way to access content without what was traditional sort of linear service, cable service deal. So they have to find ways to deliver more value and make it more attractive. But B, in my mind, I think what they're doing too is trying for the future, because there's if they no longer control access to content in the same way that they used to decades ago, what they still do control though is the pipes, right? So you've got the CTV, the OEMs out there, right, and they're controlling the living room. But you've still got these companies that control the pipes, right? And so looking to package services in order to make themselves more competitive, and bring, while they're not going to be competing like with, I think in the long term with the virtual MVPDs and streaming services, because their subscriptions are going down, they still have bundles that they can offer into the home, and so they still have to compete on that front.
Yeah, for me, I think it makes a lot of sense, both for the streaming services, right? They're all in a very, very competitive ecosystem. They're all trying to consume a bigger share of the wallet, and so they want more distribution. They want to be, bundled, and they want to get as many subscribers as they can to put on their financial reports and whatnot. So it makes a lot of sense for them. It makes a lot of sense for Charter and the other operators. The question for me is it going to be enough, right? Is it going to be enough to stop the decline of pay TV? Because I feel like the reason why streaming actually took off was because of choice, convenience, and cost, right? And so can this offering address the choice, convenience, and cost aspect that the consumers have come to expect from CTV, right? Will it be for folks that are into sports, as an example? They will continue to, I love my sports. I still have a Comcast subscription. I want the convenience of being able to watch whatever sport wherever, right? So I'm not turning off my cable subscription just yet. But for folks that don't need that sports offering, will this, incentivize them enough to continue to have their cable subscription and package, right? Also, does it sort of, like, how many services can they offer within that package? And is it compromising on the convenience aspect of, I think if I don't buy into this, I have control over the subscriptions that I opt into, the time when I'm subscribing to those services. I can turn on, I can turn off as I want. So this is still, it's a step forward for them, but I feel like for the consumers, it could still be perceived as being rigid and being forced into a certain set of services that I may or may not be interested in, right? And so it's a good step forward for them, but my question is it enough? Is
I
it
mean, in a
appealing to
way, it's a step back when you think about it.
It is.
Yeah, for the
Well-
consumers, I feel like, I mean, for them, I think they're trying to be innovative and they're trying to compete and they're trying to be relevant in the marketplace. But my question is,
Let's
to the
let's
consumers.
not lose sight of where the money comes from to Charter. I mean, I always laugh when someone says they cut the cord, and I say, well, really, how do you get your internet? Oh, I get it from
Oh, yeah.
Spectrum, or I get it from okay, you didn't really cut the cord. And if when I was in cable, the margins on on internet services were 90s, in the 90 percentile. The margins for video services were really in the 15s, in the teens. So very little money being made, but it's another service and a way to cement their internet customers. And I think that's what the key is. And I think it's a definite step in the right direction. They own that wire going into the house, and they want to keep owning it, and they want to give people a chance, not to go to some other method of getting that wire.
Yeah, they have to compete with, T-Mobile and 5G and other options. So that it's a matter of who's going to deliver the most perceived value to the consumer. And it's not just, in that space. I mean, it's how, Walmart is starting to do things. I'm really curious to see, assuming that everything goes through with Vizio, what they start offering there. They've already started incorporating Paramount Plus into a Walmart Plus subscription. I mean, Amazon started doing that, has been doing that for years. It's about competition and that perceived value, right? And there's only so many providers of internet service out there, right? You can count them, probably, depending on the region you're in, you can count them on one hand.
Yeah,
On our
just
third-
to be, and Stephanie, perhaps to your point, to me, I feel like, we're going back to the same old era of bundling, right? Instead of bundling live channels, you're now bundling subscription services for me,
Yeah.
right? And I don't want that. As a consumer, I want freedom, right? I hated paying hundreds of dollars for 200, 300 channels that I never watched. So now you're going to force 10 subscriptions on me, 9 of which I don't want, or 7 of which I don't want.
But ironically, there are a lot of research stories that I cover that say consumers, they want it all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think convenience, I agree. I think there's the two sort of prongs of this, which is the expense and the inconvenience of having to do it separately. And then, Vikram, I think your point is really well made, which is no matter what, there is the average consumer right now is used to flexibility, is used to the ability to turn on, turn off, as you say, and decide, hey, I'm Apple Plus 1 month, not the next, because of some series that I'm following.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to weigh in, but the bigger point is that there's a set of consumers, as we talked about, either they're tied to those companies via their internet links or their sort of interest in particular things that are only being carried right now on cable, sports, although we're talking about streaming and sports moving into streaming. And so lots of things are shifting. It's very much an environment of change. But I think, again, this is all about, let's try different methodologies to see what we can do to stem the flow, right?
Yeah.
And to try to keep relevant in an environment where consumers are shifting in how they think. So I do think that it's hard to know what the future will look like.
This dovetails nicely with our third story from Forbes. It's another potential lifeline in the pay TV marketplace, and it's getting bigger. DirecTV and Dish merger could create the largest pay TV distributor, is the headline of the story. What do you guys think about this merging idea? Is it good move? Will it truly give them a lifeline? Sling TV's in the mix there too. Dish's Sling TV.
Yeah,
I think it's go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, in general, I feel like there's going to be more and more consolidation in our industry going forward, right? If you look at the pressure that both public and private companies have, because also in the last 4 years there were significant investments made, some of which were perhaps ill-advised, and now companies are rolling back. There's a lot more pressure on bottom line as opposed to top line, right? Um, Folks need to show profitability, etc. I feel like there's just too many cooks in the kitchen, and I feel like
Yeah.
there's going to be consolidation at every level in the industry, right? Whether you look at, TV networks that get consolidated, merged into different packages with the big three or four companies, whether it be content libraries that eventually get sold out. Some of the smaller TV networks are going to be shut down, and their content libraries are going to be either sold off to the bigger streaming services, or merged into some other form of packages and services. Whether you look at technology, right, in the ad tech space, right, there's all these companies that are trying to provide data measurement, targeting solution, attribution solutions, right? There's just too much happening. There's been so much of investment, and not all of these companies are going to be able to sustain themselves over the long run. And so I just generally feel, and I think it's the same thing that you're seeing pan out with Dish and Direct, where they need to consolidate, they need to exploit synergies, they need to reduce, their marketing budgets because now they're not competing with each other. They need to bring down their personnel costs, streamline their technology and operations, right? Just make sure that they're running a slimmer, leaner, more efficient business, as opposed to, competing with each other and as a result, not being profitable.
Well, it's interesting that this whole deal was based on debt. Was
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe they
$1.
only bought the debt, right? Didn't they just buy the debt?
And so that tags on to what Vikrant is saying, is that the economy, the market pressures, new things are happening, deals are happening for different reasons. So you think about it as, again, the coming together because it was better to take on the debt and become this conglomerate than to stay solo and fight one another. And then the other piece is, I was dying to say this because I knew this was our next story, that when we were talking about streaming a moment ago, and we were talking about cable and pay TV and streaming, the Sling piece of this deal is really interesting, because it addresses a lot of the concerns that we've been talking about, which is this idea of consumers want flexibility, and the skinny bundle idea is coming with this deal, which is that, there is going to be the ability to offer up to consumers a much more streamlined set of streaming services. So it's the same concept as we just talked about of, we're adding streaming to the mix. That's the other piece of it. We're competing, we're bringing that into the fold because we're competing against all the big guys. It's the same problem. And then this coming together and being a bigger conglomerate, willingness to take on debt because there's an eye to where the combined entities can get to profitability. So it's a lot of different pieces. It's a puzzle. Definitely the trend. I agree, Vikrant, that across the entire ecosystem, advertising, I come from the measurement side of the fence. All of these players are saying, there can't be so many of us. Only certain ones are going to survive. And even in the article, there's speculation about, are other mergers coming, is Max and Peacock. I mean, there's really a lot of change in the wind. And I think I agree. I think some of the remaining sort of mid-sized studios are ripe for acquisition. The MGM Amazon type of deal. There's a lot here that is just sort of thematic about what is happening in the industry and the moves that I think are going to come.
Well,
Anybody else?
yeah, I just want to say that I think it makes good sense. Everybody, it's a necessity. It's just something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Part of me is sad because I remember in the early days of cable, walking the halls with Charlie Ergen, going after, we would each be going into different representatives, lobbying for our own interests, cable and satellite. If this means Charlie is heading out of the industry, that's sad for me, but I wish him all the best. I think that he built a great company. DirecTV built a great company. They did well for a long time. Now to survive, they need to merge together, and I hope they do.
Yeah,
I'm going to move it along because we're getting low on time. The fourth story I picked out was from Variety, headlined Warner Brothers Discoveries. Oh, that's hard to say. Max using Google Gen AI platform to create closed captions. And the reason I picked this out is because of the AI component. You know, there's like, is there AI bad or is AI useful? And this one, you know, seemed kind of useful because it's, you know, closed captions is something that's kind of rudimentary that needs to be done, and it would be nice if, you know, AI could do it more easily. But on the other hand, AI encroaching in entertainment has been a big issue and a big scare for many of the creative types. In fact, we had 2 strikes in 2023 that, you know, address the AI issue. What do you think about AI and about, you know, using some things like closed captions, some good uses for it?
I'll start this one off just because I didn't talk on the last two.
Oh, sorry, Bryan.
Left that to the experts for that one. No, and don't be sorry. I stayed silent for the right reason because these guys have more to talk about. That's not my space. But yeah, as far as this, I'm okay with it. I'm actually AI being used in the proper way. I'm good with it. When it comes to taking over for creators or creatives, taking over for writers, taking over for even, you know, AI generated actors, I'm not for that because again, I think the human touch is always needed. But for something like this, where it's, you know, it is something that can be automated, but then still has to be checked by a human, I'm okay with this. It's something that it's very tedious, it's very sometimes difficult to do, but if it can be done in the right way, then let's see what it does first, right? I mean, it's definitely the first step in potentially using AI in a positive way, where it's not really going to encroach heavily on an industry. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I'm good with it.
And Bryan, I think, you know, I've spent a lot of years now, the last 9 years, immersed in the media distribution technology side of the fence. And I think you hit on the point that's important, which is the AI is being used, is being incorporated into tools that are supporting the industry in ways that people aren't even aware. And a lot of it is, again, tools. That's the key word, is that it's being, you know, it's being used to streamline process and take humans out of the equation when they can be better applied to creative. So I think that's number one, is that from a sort of nuts and bolts media technology supply chain perspective, it's already in play and it's making, you know, really significant differences. Lots of processes. I mean, content monetization is key right now. Everybody's trying to get content out to the world as fast as possible, repurpose, etc. And there's so much behind the scenes that needs to get done to get that content ready for the world, from pre and post production, creative and non-creative. And again, so many of those processes, closed captions are absolutely one of them. You know, very time consuming, very human centric in the past for no reason. So again, I think that AI being utilized in this way is the right direction. And this is little impact, I think, on creative process right now. This is allowing for that freedom. So I see this as a positive.
Whip
think
uses
also
a
if you
lot
could-
of AI, don't you, Vince?
And other companies that I'm currently working with.
I agree that this is what, you know, AI, you know, really can help with. I mean, functionally, this is a fantastic implementation for AI, and there are other companies out there that are already, you know, doing it. You know, but like, to the larger question about, do we need to be concerned about AI? Like, yeah, very much so. I think it's understated, you know, if anything. And I know that within the industry, you know, professional content that is being created and you know, the deals that we're struck with, the guilds and whatnot, that's great. I think it's fantastic and it's needed, and you know, you need to protect, you know, artists and creators. But you know, who's not a part of that is the rest of the internet world and user-generated content that is accessing AI tools and can generate content themselves that is going to be increasingly compelling. I don't think it's from like, within the house that, we have to fear
Hmm.
AI. I think it's outside of the traditional entertainment companies that are going to be making more and more compelling content using AI that we're already competing for eyeballs with video games and streaming services. And, I think there's more potential for AI to have an impact from outside of the traditional entertainment business than inside.
And I think also if this can be like the start of how AI gets better within closed captioning, because AI is already being used with closed captioning. I mean, even if I make a TikTok video for Mometu, we already use it and they spell Mometu wrong every single time, no matter how many times I make a video, right? So if that can make it better, it's going to be better for creators, even just on social media platforms, but then also for, people that are near dear to my heart are, even just college filmmakers who are required to have closed captioning to enter into film festivals. And that is something where that's a cost to them, right? And these filmmakers, or even just independent filmmakers who don't have a very large budget to work with, if this can potentially increase the evolution of, AI generated closed captions for those filmmakers, it becomes more cost effective for them, and they can spend more money on the actual creative or their films than having to spend it on closed captioning to prepare for, say, a festival, or even having their film on a platform like Mometu.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I feel like, as with most technologies, right, with AI as well, there's clear benefits across every single sort of link in the value chain. But as with most technologies, there's also the potential of abuse, right? And so when it starts to sort of infringe on intellectual property or raise questions about intellectual property or misrepresent things, I think, that's really where we need governance, we need guardrails, we need clear regulation and law, which prevents all that, right? It's the same thing as, internet's great for all of us because all of the conveniences that it provides, but it also makes it easier for hackers to hack into our systems and steal our private information and, put it on the dark web and things like that. So it's no different. It's the evolution of the technology, and I'm sure we'll figure it out.
I think we need to embrace it. Like I'm actually right now at the advertising conference in New York. This is just an AI version of me here.
Wouldn't that be great, right?
Spell strawberry.
Well, it's for me.
Greg, you're so animated. It's amazing.
We can capitalize the AI in your name, Craig.
I think it's I don't think it's that far in the distance, and this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's inside the house. I think we can all agree how to properly implement AI without infringing on people's intellectual property and their rights as actors and creators. But it's outside. Like, what happens when, and I don't think we're that far away from it, when, anybody, some kid in college, right? And their entire film, Bryan, they basically just storyboarded out and then described it to an AI, right? And then the AI could generate the film itself. I don't think we're as far away from that as anybody realizes. I think we're very close. Like, just seeing how quickly Gen AI is advancing and how good those visuals are getting. Right now, you can pick out there's for AI images and videos, like there's like an extra hand here, an extra finger there. Like you can pick them out today. And so that's clearly an AI generated image because this is just off, right? We're not that far from, Gen AI being able to fix those. And then I don't think we are going to be able to tell the difference. We're going to cross uncanny valley. That's my concern.
And it cuts across all aspects, going back to, closed caption localization. I mean, there's obviously several companies that have spun up and companies that are adding that to the portfolio. And the same argument about like, hey, its best use case right now is to fill in gaps. Actor leaves the set. They need to fill in a problem, have the voice, kind of sent through. AI replicates, plugs it back in. But is it really useful? Is it the right thing to do to replace actors' voices altogether? Star talent, et cetera. So there's so many elements of, like I said, it's a tool. In some cases, it could be really wonderful in terms of fixing problems. And then there's that continuation of, we have to put the guardrails around it, help everyone feel comfortable.
I'm going to move on because we're getting low on time again. The final story I picked out is from MediaPlay News. When you buy a digital movie, you don't really own it, says new California law. This has been an issue kind of bubbling under all along in digital ownership of movies and TV shows. What do you guys think about that? Do consumers care? Is this really an issue? Did California need to get involved?
Well,
They always get involved.
Yeah, California does get involved in everything.
I'll
No.
kick this one off just because I've had in my history of many moons ago actually distributing content for so-called like EST and TVOD and whatnot. And you have studios who today they don't call it, I think as a general accepted industry term, we call electronic sell-through EST, electronic sell-through. Not all studios do. They'll call it some version of, EHV, electronic home video, or DHV, digital home video, because they specifically don't want that term of sell-through. They don't want to reference it that way because they know it's not a sale of anything.
Oh, and just to clarify, the law says like you have to tell people that you only have a license. You don't really own it in the same sense as physical.
Right. It's an end user license to
Right.
access the content, for without any additional charges for a period of time, for as long as that platform, that digital retailer has rights. Right. So it's not exactly sell through in the way that, it implies that there is an actual sale and you can access the stuff in perpetuity because there's an ownership to it. There's not. And so the California bill is saying like you have to disclose this to the consumer, which I think is a good thing because it's been true for a long time. It's not just suddenly true. What's true now is that digital retailers have to, be a little bit more forthcoming about that.
Well, it's funny because it's the B2B model, right? I mean, we're only licensing content. No one is selling content. So, I mean, this has been like the truth of the B2B world. And it's sort of exposing the reality to the consumer. I mean, that's what it is. It's just kind of funny because I think about how many times, you sort of explain TVOD, EST, et cetera. And I'm still in this world of content distribution now and licensing and working with people that are learning about it. So I think it's just sort of bringing light to something that's existed, as Vince said. And I think there's going to remain, though, that set of consumers who still want the tangible product. And there's companies that have spun up around that idea of, I want the equivalent of the Walmart basket, or maybe I do want the Walmart basket with, I buy one premium title and I get 5 more. And I own that and I have that. It's physical. So there's still that group of consumers that it's going to be important. And maybe the differentiation around, when you buy or, you have a title that you've done some kind of a purchase through the digital environment, that's very different than that library of, all the Disney movies that you have for your kids sitting on the shelf. So I think it just is going to be interesting to see if other states follow suit and or if this is a big revelation or if it's, like I said, more just, sort of making official what people understood.
Usually I think that what the California ruling will just they'll just put it on nationwide, right? They'll put because they don't want to just have the warning for California and not have it for the rest of the country. I think if people don't, honestly, I haven't had a physical movie or player in my house for at least 15 years or maybe 20. And so if anybody thinks they actually own the movie that they have, I think that they should have this clarified. That's good for them. But I think most people know that they don't actually own the movie that they're purchasing. I mean, the purchase price and the rental price are so close together that my wife and I buy a lot of them, but we buy them through, Amazon specifically, and we know that they're there, and we'll have access as long as we have access to Prime, and it doesn't go out of business, which is highly unlikely. Although we might be sitting here 20 years from now lamenting their decline or something, but that I'll take that chance. But I think that it's just another California obvious thing that they didn't need to get involved in.
Well, Craig, I think this ties in with the reduction of physical media, right? I mean, we're seeing that Best Buy no longer sells physical media, right? So they had to do something. For the consumer, it's really more so about, is this a movie that I'm really going to watch again anyways, right? I mean, if it's something that like Top Gun Maverick, I mean, that's something, hey, I want that forever. I don't want that just to be licensed. I want to be able to watch that when I'm old and gray, and I don't want that to potentially be removed. If it's another movie that you just don't really love, then okay, it's looked at as more of a rental. So in my mind, if this does happen nationwide, it should almost have another tier to it, right? You have the rental tier, which is like a 3 day or whatever, 10 day period. You could have another tier that's going to be, hey, this potentially could be for a lifetime or not, depending on, different deals that are struck or lost down the line, which is why you would lose that ability to have that license. Or you could have it for the lifetime, right? So there's almost like another layer that needs to happen for the consumer to be okay with this. But I mean, just having California do it, it doesn't make it a massive issue, and unless it's just a movie that you really want for the right for the lifetime, right?
Digital
I mean,
retailers
in a
actually
way,
tried.
sorry, it may be keeping physical alive if people
It
are
could be.
thinking along those lines.
Digital retailers tried to address this many years ago, right? I mean, in 15, 17, 18 years ago, they changed their contracts when you would license content for them for, EST, TVOD. For EST specifically, they would try to change the terms of the contract so that you were granting them, along with, this license for this title to sell it for electronic sell-through. You were also granting them a perpetual retransmission right. Right. The problem with that, though, is ultimately they realize that most of the companies that they license content from don't have perpetual rights to the content. Right. So under the company, the licensor and the transaction did not have the necessary rights to grant them the ability to, in perpetuity, be able to, for customers who purchase a movie to be able to re-download it. Right. That's just not how licenses, work, how rights work in the industry. So they tried to address it. It's just not how things work.
All right, so we're reaching the end of our time, and finally, for our lightning round, we're going to have each of the 5 panelists come up with a new story that struck them, piqued their interest, or that they'd like to bring our attention to. So, who would like to start?
I can go first.
Oh, go ahead, Vikram.
Okay. Sorry, I keep speaking over you.
We're just mind melding. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a story, but I saw somebody had put out a pie chart I saw it on a LinkedIn post where they had broken down the ad spend in the streaming space by different companies. And they were talking about Amazon sort of getting the lion's share, $1.8 billion or something that they were projecting this year. And it struck me because it sort of reinforced a notion that I've had for a long time, where I've felt like Amazon has been significantly undervalued in the streaming space up until recently. I would say when they opened up their Prime catalog for advertising, everybody used to sort of think about Netflix and Hulu and Roku and I've for a long time felt like, and this goes back to the consolidation piece, where I feel like in the industry, for a company to be successful, one, they need to have scale, and two, they need to be vertically integrated. And I feel like Amazon is the one company that is the most vertically integrated, right? Whether it be having their own device with Fire TV, whether it be having their own streaming services with Freevee and Prime Video, whether it be having their own studio with MGM, right? Whether it be with having their own ad technology and stack with the Amazon DSP, right? And their sales team. I feel like Amazon is so incredibly positioned in this marketplace. And I feel like they don't get the credit that they deserve because they've been sort of doing these things piecemeal and have really been flying under the radar where
Yep.
Nobody's really talked about them in a bigger way.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I think Amazon has been sort of looked over in the past, and the ad-supported tier being the first to market with that has changed everything. Super interesting, and content's improving. And by the way, they're not focused on spending. There's no more Lord of the Rings. They said no more. It's really about being super creative, doing more with less, and thinking about what consumers really want. So they're gonna spin up more original content, but they're gonna be a lot more judicious about the money they spend, and much more about consumer preference to drive ad revenue.
So I'll go next. I had to laugh this week when I read a story about CBS News executives getting all bent out of shape because they thought, and Stephanie, you'll get this, because they felt that the interviewer was being impartial in their interview on a morning news show, and it made me think, wow, I'm sorry, but you can't have it both ways. Walter Cronkite died a long time ago, and with him died a lot of the impartiality that ever existed in TV news today. So I thought it was very hypocritical of them to get all excited about it. I think I would love to see, as a former reporter and journalist, I would love to see impartiality come back into TV news, and some people are doing it and attempting to do it, but it's not there. And don't try to make it a deal when it doesn't fit your agenda or doesn't fit what you want to have say, that suddenly you're all throwing up your arms about somebody that was impartial because it didn't match your agenda. So it bothered me a lot.
Well, wasn't that a law also that it was part of the broadcast change over to cable where we kind of lost impartiality?
Completely. Well, I mean, when CNN first came out, it was very impartial, and now when a CNN anchor went on Colbert and said something about being impartial, all the audience laughed. So they all know it. Everybody knows.
But I mean, way back when Walter Cronkite, you had to give equal time. I mean, there were absolute rules.
Yeah, there were.
And with new technology, that was just thrown out the window.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll go next if that's
Yeah.
I know we're running close on time. I don't know if anyone else had a unique experience at AFM last year, or if you guys even went to AFM. But now with it, leaving Los Angeles and going to Vegas, something that caught my attention was a Deadline article back from April that I'm only bringing up because the event is next week, but the American Film Convention. So it's the inaugural year of this. Really looking forward to it. Mitesh Patel, the CEO, he's a previous grassroots independent filmmaker. So bringing this out and starting this event, they're gonna have a market very similar to AFM. They're doing a film auction, which is really cool, like an auction, like literally a live auction of completed films, where people literally get to bid on the rights to films, which I think is really, really unique, and see how that is. The conference aspect, which I'll be speaking on a panel next Wednesday, which I'm really looking forward to as well. Product and service showcase, which Mometu will also have a booth, but there's roughly 30 other vendors that are going to be there just in our section, and there's some other vendors as well. Workshops for actors and post workshops, which I think is really cool. It's going on all aspects of filmmaking, and just different networking events that are taking place. So I'm actually looking forward to this because it's kind of an evolution of AFM, and I'm hoping that it does take off because they've done something that I thought AFM should have done a while ago, was move it into a conference center versus being in a hotel, which can be difficult to get in and out on a roundabout. They
isn't
decided
AFM moving to Las Vegas too?
They moved to Las Vegas, and actually
Yes.
AFC. I talked to the CEO, and the AFC was originally going to launch in Las Vegas. And so when they found out AFM was moving, they said, "Hey, we'll take Los Angeles, no problem. There's more filmmakers there than there are in Vegas." So Las Vegas can be a good and a bad thing, right? I mean, we'll see how AFM does there, but they're going to be in a hotel at a conference center too. So it's like they should have just done that in LA, where they've already had this established group of people that are and members, right, that are going to be attending. So again, we'll see how it goes. I'm just that's why it piqued my interest, because we're going to be a part of it, but B, I'm just looking to see how the difference of, how AFM does this year and how AFC does this year, and how does that evolve over time, and how does this conference affect, or do the conferences affect each other at all?
Las Vegas
Yeah,
is
I don't
taking
know
over
why.
the world. They have all the sports teams. Yeah, everything.
Yeah, I don't know why AFM moved to Las Vegas. I think they had a few little problems with last year's show. There was a lot of
They did. There was
it was a mess.
there were picketers and all that
And
stuff,
there
but
were
it was
three
mainly
different hotels, and you had to get on a bus, and it was a little weird.
They
yeah,
probably
they
had a
originally they
California law.
originally they originally had it at a hotel that was actually quite well spread out for what it was unique, but then they lost the ability to do that. The Lowe's ended up upgrading their hotel.
That's right.
They didn't want to have to take out the beds every time they had a market, right? So they moved it to another location. Happened to be having a bunch of not riots, picketing going on. That was just, I mean, it almost seemed like a riot. I mean, you couldn't get in and out of the building without getting accosted, either physically or verbally. So it was very difficult. So again, I think AFM could have made the switch to just do something at a convention center, like a typical market would be at, but they just didn't, right? They ended up moving, and we'll see how it does for them. I mean, I hope it pays off for them, but I'm actually really looking forward to the new AFC and seeing how this inaugural year does for them.
Okay.
I guess mine, and I'll try to be quick here. Mine is Netflix's continued investment in gaming, and bringing games onto their platform. I don't see many people talking about it yet. But I mean, you look at just anything that Netflix is investing heavily into, I think you got to take, a really close look at. They obviously changed the game when they invested in streaming. They obviously changed the game when they doubled, tripled down, quadrupled down on original content and the volume of original content, and the amount, the sheer amount that they were investing in that in productions. Now they're investing in gaming. I mean, it's not quite to that level yet, but I've been noticing personally more and more games being featured,
Yep.
on the Netflix splash page. Whereas before, that big showcase real estate was never devoted to gaming. I'm seeing that big splash more and more. I'm seeing more tie-ins to their original content. It really is sort of, brand engagement and time spent on platform. And I think it's smart of them. I haven't used them for gaming personally, but just by virtue of how much they're pushing certain games and expanding the different kinds of games that they're offering, the kinds of experiences, I'm going to be checking it out. So I think
last night I literally saw that on Netflix. They had like, do you know we have this game or something? I was like, oh wow, they really are pulling it.
Yeah,
playing
I don't think anybody's really talking about it yet.
Yeah.
So.
I have one, I'll try to be quick because I know we're actually over time, but going back to the theme of AI, I actually have two articles that I'm going to bring up. The first one is the launch of Movie Gen I, which is Meta's new video creation tool that's about to come to market. It's sort of everything everyone fears in some ways, because it's going to be in the hands of everyone, and they're sort of envisioning that creators, social media creators, as well as movie companies will be interested in this thing, but it feels like everything we fear potentially coming forward, but it's real, and I think that's the theme is we can't stop it. And then on the other side is Runway, and their new announcement about the 100 Film Fund, which I think should be also quite interesting. As everyone knows, Lionsgate did a deal with Runway, kind of deal with the devil. And this film fund is that they're willing to give between $5,000 to $1 million to filmmakers who agree to use their AI technology. And so it's going to be, sort of get in the door through the promise of funding. And longer term, this is going to have could have very significant impact. And I think some of these smaller filmmakers are going to be enticed by the idea of, it's really difficult to get money behind a small film, and, if the opportunity is there. So again, yep. Doing deals with the devil, but is this for good? Is this for, is this sort of the inevitable? But super interesting that within a 2-week span. These articles came out, and they're quietly sort of bubbling to the surface.
All right. Well, I think everybody had their lightning round. I want to thank all of our panelists. We had a really wide-ranging discussion, and thanks for bringing all your knowledge to so many different subjects. It's a bit of a scary time, but also an exciting time in the business with all these new technologies and new business models. So thanks again, and thanks to our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you all so much. That was a great roundup of the latest happenings, trends, and topics in the industry. We'd love to keep you for the extra hour if we could. Thank you again to everybody. Thank you, Stephanie, Craig, Alisa, Bryan, Vikrant, and Vince. It was a great deep dive. Friendly reminder that this session was recorded and will be available in the next few days at OTTX.org, as well as via podcast on Spotify. As far as OTTX, we'll be back with you next week with a special webinar titled Not All Impressions Are Created Equal, Ways You Can Make Your Inventory More Valuable and Appealing to Buyers. That'll be presented by Fred Godfrey, co-founder and chief executive officer for Origin. Thank you all so much once again for joining us today, and we hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.